Welcome to Tuesday night, everyone, and welcome to Michelle's Formula for Success. So tonight, we are going to talk about the most important thing that you have in your business right now, and that is you. So we're going to talk about ways of looking after yourself and enhancing the way you do things so that at the end of the day, your business can grow because you are looking after you. So let's get started. I'll just pop this on. I'm just sharing my screen and I'm just trying to find the right one. Yeah, I think we've got that right. So Michelle's Formula for Success, looking after you, is the topic tonight. So on Tuesday nights, I invite you to just kick back, grab a cuppa or a glass of vino or some water or whatever takes your fancy and settle in to find out what ingredients make up Michelle's Formula for Success. So each week, what we're doing is exploring a different topic and coming up with some ideas that you'll be able to immediately implement so that you can help your business on the path to growth and success. So my purpose as a business owner is to help other business owners succeed. And the more knowledge and the more skills I can share with you, the more opportunity I have to help and support you. So it's a win-win situation. Now, as I said, tonight is especially important because the topic is you. And we are going to talk about preserving and enhancing your most important asset, which is you. So during this presentation, I'll be drawing on and expanding on some of the concepts of habit number 7 in Stephen R. Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. Now, even though this book was published over 30 years ago, the principles and ideas are just as relevant today as they were then. So let me give you an extract from the book and we can read through it together. I'm just checking my phone to make sure everything's coming up okay. Awesome. So suppose you were to come upon someone in the woods working feverishly to saw down a tree. What are you doing, you ask? Can't you see, comes the impatient reply. I'm sawing down this tree. You look exhausted, you exclaim. How long have you been at it? Over 5 hours, he returns, and I'm beat. This is hard work. Well, why don't you just take a break for a few minutes and sharpen the saw, you inquire. I'm sure it would go a lot faster. I don't have time to sharpen the saw, the man says emphatically. I'm too busy sawing. So this is habit number 7 in the book that Stephen Covey talks about, called Sharpen the Saw. And the other 6 habits that he goes through first are be proactive, begin with the end in mind. Number 3, put first things first. Number 4, think win-win. Number 5, seek to understand, then be understood. And number 6 is synergize. That is creative cooperation. And then habit number 7, which we're going to talk about tonight, is sharpen the saw. So how many, and be honest with yourself, how many of us are guilty of not taking the time to sharpen the saw? And when you think about it, this surrounds all of the other habits that he talks about, because it is the one that makes all of the others possible. It's a little bit like, when you're on a plane and they say, fit your own oxygen mask first, because if you don't look after yourself, then you can't help anybody else. So he talks about the 4 dimensions of renewal. And by renewing the 4 dimensions of your nature, the physical, the social, emotional, the spiritual, and the mental, you are preserving and enhancing the greatest asset you have, which is you. Now, this is the single most powerful investment we can ever make in our life, and that's investment in ourselves, because this is the only instrument that we have with which to deal with life and to contribute. So we're going to briefly explore each one, starting with physical. So the physical dimension, as the name implies, involves caring for our physical body, eating the right foods, getting enough rest and relaxation, and exercising on a regular basis. Now, exercise is one of those activities that many people don't do consistently because it isn't urgent. And because it gets neglected, sooner or later, this means dealing with health problems and crises that come from the neglect of not moving your body enough. Now, many people think that they actually don't have enough time to exercise. And I'm going to challenge that and say this is a distorted paradigm. We don't have time not to. So when you think about it, we're talking 3 to 6 hours a week, or let's say a minimum of 30 minutes every other day. Now, that hardly seems like a huge amount of time, considering the tremendous benefits that we get and the impact that this can have on the other 162 to 165 hours in the week. So when you say it like that, finding 3 hours or 4 hours to look after yourself compared to, we have another 160 something hours left, doesn't really seem like that much. And you don't actually need any special equipment. I mean, you can go to a gym, or you can go to Pilates studio or yoga sessions if you want to, but you can also do it on your own. For me, I walk at least 4 times a week, and one of these walks each week is at least 10, sometimes 15 kilometers long. And as I get closer to going to Lara Pinta in July, they'll definitely be 15 kilometers long each week, because I need to build up my endurance. And I also have space set up. We're lucky, we've got a great big shed in the backyard, and I have some hand weights, and I also have, and this is showing my age, a DVD program, which I must admit I don't do very often, but I do have a weights workout that's been set up for me to help me build my core strength, and to also build the strength in my legs, because I'm very lucky. I have a son who studies sport and exercise science, so he worked out my weights routine for me. But just because you don't have somebody like that in your life who can help you, don't forget that there's lots of apps, there's lots of resources available. And some of the apps actually have like a built-in accountability facet, because you have the opportunity to share your progress and let everybody know where you're up to. Now, the double benefit that you can get from exercise, aside from building up the strength of your body and your endurance, is that it is also a really good tool for stress reduction. So And then the flow-on effect from that, by reducing your stress and doing regular exercise, this can also help improve your nutrition choices, because when you're more active, you seem more likely to make healthier food choices, and also having less stress can lead to less times when you are actually eating because of stress and looking for perhaps comfort food. So what's the second one we're going to talk about? It's the spiritual dimension. So what do I mean by your spiritual dimension? So this is your core, your center, your commitment to your value system. So it's a very private area of your life, but it is extremely important. Now, it draws upon the sources that inspire you and uplift you, and really, in essence, tie you to the fundamental truths of what you believe deep in your heart. And people do it very, very differently. For me, I find renewal in daily guided meditations that ground me. They keep my energy flowing and connect me to source. I do my practice first thing in the morning because when I'm finished, I feel calm, I feel centered, and I feel ready to tackle the day. Another way that you can renew yourself is through literature or music, depending on the type of things that, you know, how there's some music that just really seems to resonate and just you can feel it as well as listen to it. And then there are others that are renewed by nature. So when you're able to leave the noise that we find around us in the city and the suburbs and just get back to that rhythm and harmony of nature and be out in nature, you come back renewed. And I've also read a little bit too about the fact that I think it's called grounding, where you actually have your bare feet on the ground so that you're connecting directly to the earth. And when you do things like that, you can come back. I think I've made up a new word here, undisturbable, almost unflappable. But it's not a feeling that lasts forever. It's something that needs to be renewed. So you can't just like go out into nature once and go, okay, I've done that, I'm all renewed, I'm all good for now, because the effect gradually fades away. So, you know, for me personally, I totally agree with all of this, because I find even just a day out in nature, walking through the bush, is enough to give me that fix of, wow, now I feel great when I finished. You know, people think sometimes I'm crazy when I say, oh, I just go for a 10-kilometer walk or a 15-kilometer walk. But also, when I've done long treks, like 2 weeks or more, you actually get to the point, and I know this is going to sound a tad crazy, but where you almost start to feel blissful. And it is actually, you know, like quite counterintuitive when you think, if you're walking up and down hills and walking around about, on average, 20 kilometers a day, to describe the whole experience as blissful. But it does just really give you that whole, wow, this is just fabulous feeling. Again, it's not for everybody. And maybe ask me again after I spend 2 weeks in Central Australia walking Larapinta Trail in July and August this year. I might have changed my mind completely. Now, when you look at spiritual renewal, it takes time. But like exercise and looking after the physical side, it really is an activity that we really don't have time to neglect. And this is why, for me, I believe a personal mission statement is so important. If we have a really deep understanding of our center and our purpose, we can review that and commit to it frequently, even daily, if you want to. And in our daily spiritual renewal, we can visualize and actually already live out the events of the day in harmony with those values that you've just reviewed and committed to. And for me, my business purpose is quite simple. It's helping business owners succeed. And underlying that, my personal purpose is really simple, and it's simply helping people. So let's talk about the mental dimension now. So most of our mental development and study discipline comes through formal education. But once we leave the discipline of school, it's really up to us to continue to do what I call serious reading. I mean, there's reading for fun and entertainment, but also reading where you explore new subjects, you think analytically, and you write critically about them. So education, and I'm continuing education, continually honing and expanding your mind, is vital mental renewal. And sometimes that can involve the external discipline of a classroom or a formal study program, but more often than not, it doesn't. And proactive people can figure out many, many ways to educate themselves. And there's no better way to stay informed and expand your mind on a regular basis than getting into the habit of reading to learn. You can get into the best minds that are now or that have been in the world. And maybe if you're not in the habit of doing this, you could set yourself a goal to read, let's say, one book a month. Now, if you're not a regular reader, or if you read slowly, this might sound quite daunting, but if you break it down into manageable chunk, it just could be something that you could actually end up doing. So think about this. If you commit to reading 10 pages a day, just 10, every day for a year, that's 3,650 pages for the year. So depending on the size of the book, you're going to be reading somewhere between 10 to 15 books a year. So does that goal of reading one book a month actually sound a bit more achievable now? Hope so. Now, writing is another powerful way to sharpen that mental sword. Keeping a journal of our thoughts, our experiences, our insights, our learnings, it promotes mental clarity, exactness, and context for us. And writing good letters or emails, communicating on deeper levels of thoughts, feelings, and ideas, not on just superficial events of the day, also impacts on our ability to think clearly, to reason accurately, and to be understood effectively. Another form of mental renewal is organizing and planning. So this is about beginning with the end in mind and being able mentally to organize to accomplish that end. It's also being able to visualize and see the whole journey, at least in principles, if not breaking it down to the smallest steps. And then the fourth one we're going to talk about is the social emotional dimension. So the social and emotional dimensions of our lives are tied together because our emotional life is primarily, but not exclusively, developed out of and manifested through our relationships with other people. So renewing our social and emotional dimension doesn't take time in the same sense that renewing the other dimensions does. But with the other dimensions, you are actually setting aside a specific time of the day to exercise or to read or do your planning, all of those sort of things, and to meditate. But with the social and emotional dimension, we can do it in our normal everyday interactions with others, but sometimes it does require exercise. And what I mean by that is sometimes we might have to push ourselves because we actually haven't reached the level where social interactions come naturally and easy for us. And what you might find is that you might have to work through different approaches to communication, especially if you are interacting with someone who has a very different perspective than you about the issue or the topic in question. So then we turn to a phrase called intrinsic security. And we ask ourselves, where does this come from? It doesn't come from what other people think of us or how they treat us. It doesn't come from the scripts they've handed us. And it doesn't come from our circumstances or our position. It comes from within. It comes from those principles that are deep in our own heart and our own mind. And it comes from having our inside out congruence. So what I mean by that phrase is that what's happening inside of us is congruent with what's happening around us and in the world, and that we are actually living a life of integrity, and the things that we do every day reflect this, and they reflect our deepest values. So in essence, what I'm talking about here is that peace of mind comes when your life is in harmony with your true principles and your values. So now we are going to talk about balance in renewal. So this self-renewal process needs to include a balanced renewal in all four dimensions of our nature: the physical, the spiritual, the mental, and the social emotional. And although renewal in each dimension is important, it only becomes effective as we deal with all four dimensions in a wise and balanced way. So to neglect any one area negatively impacts upon the rest. So what I'm saying then is, you can't just be fabulous in one area and neglect the other three, because there's no balance in your life and everything will be lopsided. So perhaps what you could do now is to write down a specific sharpen your saw activity in all four of the dimensions that you feel would enhance your life, and then make a commitment to doing these activities. So what we're talking about again is the physical, the spiritual, the mental, and the social emotional. Now, if I was going to join you and write down what my actions would be, For the exercise one, I would add one more walk per week. I can't get my mouth working properly tonight. I would add, don't miss any days for journaling. I'm pretty good, but not perfect at journaling every day. I would be adding that I need to have one deep conversation, as in something that is beyond a superficial topic every day, and that I shouldn't be missing any days for meditation either. Because again, I'm guessing most of the time I would be five or 6 days out of 7. So it's not too bad, but I would like to really bump that up so that I can, hand on my heart, say I am meditating and journaling every single morning. Now, a key part of my Foundations of Success program, my coaching program, is working with you to understand exactly where you are right now and what we would need to do to get you to where you want to be. So if you'd like to explore what it would be like to have me as your coach and work through the strategies such as these and such as what we've talked about today, to get the planning, the organization, the renewal into your life so that the flow on effect for your business will be very positive, then why don't we get together and have a chat and we can figure out what the best options are for you. So look for a link in the comments to jump into my calendar. I'm not sure. I'll have to remember to go and do that after I finish the live. Or if you can't find a link, just comment on the live or send me a message and simply say, let's chat. And yes, that is me there walking across a suspension bridge in Nepal. I'm liking to think, when was that? September 2015. So thank you, everybody. I really appreciate when you come along and join in. Next week, we will be back at the earlier time of 6 p.m. because daylight saving ends this weekend. So other commitments shift around, which means now I'll be free at 6 o'clock again. And what we're going to talk about next week is that there are 2 kinds of feedback that you will receive in business and in life, positive or negative. And it's how you actually receive this feedback and what you learn and implement from both types that will determine and shape your future. So why don't you join me as we explore some ideas and options around this topic. So thank you once again, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and I will talk to you soon. And until we get together again, always remember that you have everything you already need within you. You just need to find it. Bye for now.